Hello everyone, here we are back again with Fresh Air Carpet Cleaning and myself, Franco, and today we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about upholstery cleaning, that black magic art that we sometimes need to perform. So that will be our little topic for today. Let's get into it. Okay, and here we are back again with Michael Worthington, and we're going to have our little talk today, as I said, about having our upholstery cleaned.
I know, Franco, you know, when you talked about it, and we have talked off air about upholstery cleaning. I remember when you very first said it to me, and I actually said to Franco, but you're a carpet cleaner.
Yes, that's right. We're actually, to put it more specifically, we're a fibre cleaner.
Yes.
So fibres we'll find in carpeting, and obviously fibres we'll find in upholstery as well. And it's the same sort of basic principles, because they're the same sorts of basic fibres that we're using. There are a couple of variances obviously, but essentially we're still dealing with the same sorts of classifications of fibres.
So when you're looking at the different fabrics or fibres on things, does that mean that every carpet cleaner can clean upholstery as well as carpet?
Okay, in a technical sense, in a technical sense, yes, they should be able to, but the kicker with that is they have to understand the construction. There's one thing about talking about just the fibres, and that's all good, and you know, we got this fibre A that will react in a certain way and fibre B will react in a certain way. That still applies, but then how is it all actually put together and constructed into an actual fabric? That differs from carpet considerably. So we've got to understand those nuances to be able to treat them properly.
I think it is, and we've talked about different constructions on carpets.
Yep.
You know, everything from, you know, the heshing backs to paper.
Yeah. And guess what? You find that in upholstery too. Ouch.
Oh, you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rayon fabrics are not uncommon.
Now, one thing, you know, we've always discussed, and it is, I think it's pretty common knowledge now, you should book in your carpets for regular cleaning.
That's right.
It's so that you actually maintain, you get the longevity, because they're quite expensive. But upholstery on furniture, and furniture is quite expensive as well, especially with some of the beautiful fabrics they put on. But do you find this is a bit more spasmodic, ad hoc?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's really quite strange, because I mean, think about it. How much time do you spend sitting on a chair, lounging back in the evening, watching your movies or your Netflix and whatever else that might be happening, or sitting down on your office chair, or sitting in your dining chairs and eating your meals, and especially if you've got kids and what happens then, things flying, sticky things and all the rest of it. But people just don't seem to think about their upholstery. And by the time they do think about it, it's not just dirty. Quite often they're filthy. I've seen them to the point where there's just a layer of scum across the top that you actually can't see the colour of the fabric anymore. And that's particularly with the macro suede type fibres, which are a polyester. Yep. And they're what we call oleophilic. They really love oil, and oil draws towards them quite nicely. And guess what we got on our skin?
I was going to say, so all the body oils and all the salts and the fats that we carry around that we rub off.
Yes, and they bond on there really nicely, and get this nice smooth grey finish.
And I suppose you're leaning back on with your hairspray and your
gels,
that's right. And just the oil in your hairs anyway.
Absolutely. So that's all going to be bonded onto the fibre and has to be released off the fibre somehow. And as I said, that's where it can get a little bit tricky, because you've got to understand the fibres and the way that they're put together. Okay?
Because it's, I mean, you mentioned a couple of fibres there, but there's all sorts. I mean, you look at lounge suites today. I mean, they're ranging from leathers to synthetic leathers to the suede fabrics, and there's different types of suede. Because I said to you, well, we got one of those suede things. You went, well, is it this or this or this? I'm like,
I don't know. It's the suede stuff.
You brush it and it changes shade.
Yeah, that's a pretty good indicator. But that tells me it could be one of a few different things. But yeah, I mean, the real difference between fabric and carpet is obviously the fact that, I mean, fabric's how thin, whereas carpet's got a bit of depth to it. So there's going to be a lot more fragility in there, and especially when we start talking about cellulosic fibres, things like plant-based materials, and more often than not, they're mixed in with synthetics. So there's a lot more blending of fibres, and it can be 3 or 4 different fibres or types of fibre within the one fabric, which is not quite the same sort of thing as you find in carpet. Normally with the carpet, it's just 1 or 2, and that's it. in the actual face yarns that you're dealing with.
You said something then about the thickness of carpet as to the thickness of fabric.
Yep.
Does that mean that the fabric on your furniture is more prone to permanent damage?
Absolutely, it's a lot more fragile, especially when we start talking about cellulosic types or plant-based materials. Okay, because they're going to be more prone to problems from moisture if you leave too much moisture behind, or if you start agitating it too much, or in the case of like even what we call satin weave fibres.
Yep.
With those ones there, if you brush them the wrong way, you tear them, irrespective of which type of fibre you have.
Wow.
Okay, so you've got to understand, as I said, the nuances of each different type to clean them effectively and safely.
So when you see your fabrics, and like we've got one now, we put ours into storage for a little while,
Yep.
we've pulled it out, and it's starting to discolour a little bit.
Yep.
Is that actually the colour being worn out of the fibres, or is that just
It really
dirt?
depends on what type of fibre we're talking about. And then there's all sorts of different conditions that can happen there. I mean, it could be that you've had it in a window, so we've got a bit of sun fade. It could be, depending on the type of fibre it is, that it could be just the abrasion of you sitting on it, getting up and off it all the time. It could be cleaning that's done before that's happened to it. It's a whole variety of different factors that come into play. But I mean, with a lot of things like a lot of the fibres these days are polyesters and what we call solution dyes. So the actual dyes have gone into the fibre rather than onto it. So they're really bonded well into the fibre, and they're not that prone to fade. So if you have got something going on with fading, it could be an optical illusion from something else that's contaminating it. So look, there are so many variances to the theme. It's really hard to say, yes, it's going to be this, or yeah, it's going to be that. It's just a multitude of things that it could be, and they need to be pre-identified before we start cleaning, so that we can actually come up with a methodology to get the best effect.
Yeah. Now, there was one, and I got told this is a really great cleaning method for fabrics, especially if you've got a stain on them.
Here we go.
It was on Mr. Google.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, when you've got a stain on fabrics, because they're quite thin, what you can do is get the old face pack material from the local chemist, put that on there with a little drying agent like mess or something, and when you smear them, because the drawing factors will draw the stain out of that fabric, and then you just wipe that off, and that is a pretty good all-round solution for fabrics.
Yeah, right. I have my doubts. And the reason
I googled that one just for you, Franco.
Thanks, mate. Look, that might work in certain situations, but it could spell disaster in others. And that's why I said there's no one-size-fits-all scenario. You have to come in there and really identify the fibres that you're dealing with and the construction, and then look at the chemistry that you might need to be able to work with that particular item. Everyone's going to be that little bit different. And there are just so many variations on the theme when it comes to fabrics. It's really ridiculous, and it's really easy to go wrong on it. And when you do, it's a very expensive proposition to fix.
So have you got any stories where you've actually gone and people have tried the...
Oh yeah, actually there's one particular person I know. He happens to be another carpet cleaner himself, but he didn't have the specific training for upholstery. And he had a particular fabric at home that on his one that he'd brought across from Singapore with him.
So he did this to himself?
No, he didn't. What happened is that he had a dog that cut its paw, I think it was, and it bled onto this fabric.
Oh.
And so he called the insurance people in. They thought, well, you know, I'll pay my insurance, let's just get them to do it. He wasn't confident that he'd be able to do it properly. So he got the insurance guys in, and that ended up in a $12,000 replacement. Because they didn't pre-identify the fibre, they just come along and went, oh yeah, it's blood, let's do this, bang, did it. And in this case, it was a 100% rayon. He didn't...
So what's rayon?
Rayon, which is, remember a paper product we were talking about? Yes, okay. So with that stuff there, you're supposed to groom it quite significantly after cleaning it. They didn't. It pile set in the wrong direction, and it was permanent, and there was a permanent mark, and they only did half the cushion, of course, because the blood was only on half the cushion.
Oh, no.
But the material was, because it was from Singapore and had a few years of age in it, was unavailable, so it was a full replacement because someone didn't pre-identify before they started.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was actually really happy that he didn't do it himself. And the professional,
I was
really
going to say, you said a couple of things there. One thing that struck me now, would a professional ever just clean half a cushion? Surely when you're doing that.
No. I mean, look, the thing is that I myself don't like doing that because of the fact that if you clean one bit, it then glows, it shines, it's clean. The rest of it looks terrible. I had another instance in that regard that one person, I got called in to do an inspection on a lounge suite because the woman accused the guy of, another carpet cleaner, of bleaching it. He'd only cleaned one armchair, the one that she always used. She was OCD. No one was allowed to sit in the other furniture. So she was the only one that ever used that one chair. So, okay, that one chair is dirty. It was 10 years old. Okay. So he's cleaned the chair, done a fantastic job, I have to say. He did a perfect job of it. That was great, no problems at all. But then, of course, it looked lighter than the rest of it. So I got called in to do the inspection on it. And it's like, that's clean, they're dirty. Impossible, they can't be dirty. They are never been touched, never even been sat on. They're as absolutely virginal from the day they were put into the room. Don't even let my husband sit on it.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So what would happen there was that over the years, we have airborne pollutants.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
They will settle on everything. You have cooking fumes, you got oils in there, it all settles on that fabric. So even though you think it's clean, it's never been touched by a human hand, it still has atmospheric pollutants in there. And when you clean it, 10 years of that has come off. And now it looked brighter than the rest of it. There was no bleaching at all. In fact, it was a solution dyed fibre, which cannot be bleached.
Oh.
So it was just bright. It was clean. It was beautiful. The rest of them weren't.
So how did you convince her?
How did I convince her?
Did you clean a spot on the others?
No, well, we explained it, and in the end, what we ended up doing, we did a cheat. Actually put that into the dark corner of the room and took the other one out and put it there for her to use, and it balanced out the look of it, and that was enough to get him over the line. But she was very unhappy with the fact that she was just adamant he'd bleached it, but he had just cleaned it, unfortunately, and it just showed. And I've had that other instances where the same sort of thing has happened, and I've said, look, I will not advise you to do this. If you absolutely want just that one, I haven't got the budget to fix the rest of it. Okay, well, we'll do that one. And then I get the call 2 days later. Can you please come back and do the rest? The rest look terrible.
So what skill sets do you really need to be able to start tackling furniture or upholstery?
Okay, so I mean, when I do training with other people, we always tackle the fibre identification and constructions straight away. It is the construction side of it, not so much the fibre side of it, because that overlaps with carpets anyway.
Yes.
We're still doing the same fibres, but in the construction side of it, you've got to understand how they work, both for and against.
Especially when you were saying before you might have 3 or 4 different fibres mixed in to make a construction. That must just be so complicated sometimes.
It can be, especially like things like a jacquard fabric. You could have 4 or 5 different colours in there, and there could be 4 or 5 different fibres in there. And then the jacquards have got the thing that they're a lot thicker than your standard sorts of fabrics.
Okay.
And if a colour's on the surface there and you can't see it again, it's not that it's not there anymore, it's actually in the back of it. And if you have some sorts of fibres that may bleed colour, like cellulosic fibres, once again, they're the ones that we always fall back on, that they're the most problematic, then we've got to look at that and say, well, how's that going to impact what we're doing? We may need to speed dry it. Okay, linens are another one that do really get affected badly by moisture. So how do we tackle? So we can't take too much agitation. If they've been sitting in the sun, they get very fragile. The way that they've been used, they have sweat soiling on them. They also become a huge issue. They become very stained. They go yellow. Cottons are also really prone to sweat soiling as well. They have a hollow core called aluminum, so it's like a straw. It draws into it. Now, to clean them really effectively, you've got to throw in a bath and soak them. We can't do that. So we've got to come up with a plan to get the best results. So each time you look at it, you're thinking, okay, what are the pitfalls of this one here? And how do I get around it without destroying it in the process to get the best result, not just an okay result, which is a lot of people, that's all they do. They give it a quick clean. It's like, oh yeah, that looks better. I don't like doing that. I want to get the best result possible. That's what they're paying me for.
Yes. So how long does training take?
Oh, look, with the actual theory side of it, we just spend basically a day on the carpet and a day in upholstery, and then we go out in the field and we start doing the practical sessions. Yeah.
And so, I dare say that's when the learning really starts.
Oh, absolutely, because I mean, you can only take in so much by sitting in a classroom sort of scenario, and me sitting there speaking things at you, saying, oh yeah, you've got to understand this, and you've got to know that, and do this and do that. But until you actually put it into practice, a lot of times it doesn't really gel for people. But when they see what happens, and a couple of times I've actually been able to get into a situation where I know that I can damage something because it's what it's there for. It's for practice purposes. It's like, okay, just let them go for it and let them actually damage it and say, right, that's what we don't do. And that's a really good learning tool.
Yes.
Because that shows them how easy it is to create a problem or an issue for themselves that then becomes a big, expensive problem.
Yes, which is one of the things today, because people are very, very quick today to go, oh yeah, well, you damaged it, you pay for it.
That's right. And look, in all fairness, that's exactly what should happen. You are meant to be the expert when you go in, so you should be able to take care of the problem, resolve the issue for your customer. That's what they're paying you for.
Have you come across any where you've just looked at and just gone, this is impossible?
I always like the challenge. Look, sometimes you might find a couple that you just look at and they look, I know that's not going to come up 100%. And the answer I normally get is, give your best crack. And which is what we do. Right. And we get the best solution that we can, given the circumstances that we're trying to deal with. But sometimes you look at them and think, well, you know what, you should have had this cleaned about 5 years ago.
I was going to say, because I suppose a few people watching may go, well, based on what you're saying, Franco, the leathers are probably the best materials to go for, but they're still dyed with colour.
Oh, that's right. They normally what they have is they dye the actual leather itself a base colour, and then they apply pigment over the top of it, so it's like a paint. Guess what? It wears off.
Yeah. Okay.
And people think that leather's that brown colour. No, leather's not brown.
No.
Okay. When they make leather these days, they normally use a chromium-based solution.
Right.
Okay. And what you get is this bluish coloured leather.
Oh.
And that's what it actually looks like. It looks not dissimilar to your jacket there. It's quite a sickly colour actually, but that's the process to make the leather become less likely to biodegrade, because it's a natural product, so they've got to be able to put some sort of preservative in there. So that wet blue that we get at the end of that process then goes through a dyeing process. Okay. So if you're going to have a black leather, they dye a base black into that and then put the black on top of it. If you're going to have red, it goes base red with a red over the top of it. You wouldn't have like a green base leather with a pink over the top of it, because if it gets a scratch in that, then it's going to show. Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges when you come to cleaning leather landscapes? Because there's some quite expensive ones. I mean, you see them coming from Italy, and then you've got your Chesterfields. You've got all sorts of different ones coming in. Yeah,
so you've got to look, and once again, leather's a completely different thing to what your fabrics are. They're a lot more fussy as far as their chemistry goes. You've got a very limited.
Fussy.
Oh my God, yes.
They're not tougher.
God, yeah.
Oh, so the illusion that it's leather, it's tougher.
No. Leather needs a heck of a lot of maintenance to actually perform properly.
Oh.
Yeah, people think it's bulletproof, and it's not. Because we've got that leather that started off with, and then we've got the pigment over the top of it, so it's a coating that can abrade off, and then some of them have a protector over the top of that as well. And that's great until the protector breaks down, which it will with age. It's a protective coating, so it can get rubbed off. Yep, it will wear off. And to the point sometimes where you've actually gone right through the pigment as well. Now, if you start furiously cleaning away with your high pH solution, and you've got that the protective coat's already gone, and you're on the pigment, and you go scrub, and you look at your cloth and like, all the colours on the cloth, and oh dear, it's all gone off the actual leather. And they can be recoloured, but that's it's not a cleaning issue, it's a recolouring issue, and that's another kettle of fish again. So you've got to understand that you're very, very capable of creating damage when you've had that sort of situation. And people on medication, actually, I had one in Coogee, North Coogee, in the apartments here, beautiful leather lounge suite. Husband had cancer, he'd been on a medication, but those medications eat through those coatings quite nicely.
Oh.
Yeah, so as soon as I started cleaning, it's like, it's coming off in the cloth. I warned my customer about it, said, look, this can be the issue. She said, look, just go for it. We know, we understand, just do what you can. And I managed to clean it and have it looking great. And there was just enough colour left, then I could put a protector over the top of it.
Okay.
But every time you clean it, that protection has to get put on. And a lot of people don't do that, they'll just clean it. But if you don't put the protector on it, guess what's going to happen? Your leather will degrade a lot faster.
Now that's one of the things I was going to ask, is because you see a lot of people selling the protectors now, and they recommend it on, and I thought, is this just another sales gimmick?
No.
Right.
No, they actually do play a part, and particularly on upholstery. On your carpets, they work. There's no doubt about it, they do work. But with your upholstery, they're getting a lot more oils on them once again, from our skin. And there's just, I mean, especially because of the fact that a lot of the fibres we have these days are polyesters, and guess what? They like oil.
Yeah.
So with those ones there, a protector can actually help. Okay. Once again, you need to have the right sort of protector to be able to protect that fabric. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of scenario. So you've got to understand the nuances of that fabric. Now, the problem is, like, say, a macro suede.
Yep.
It's got this polyester, and what really works best on those ones there are your solvent-based protectors. But they're also what we call the bonded fibre. They've got a backing that's glued onto the back of it. You put a solvent protector onto it, that solvent dissolves the backing, and you get this nice floppy fabric, which is now no longer what it was supposed to be.
I think I've seen a few lounges like that.
Yeah, and look, it does happen. They do degrade over time. Sweat will do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so once again, it's really important to keep that maintenance up.
Right.
And it can happen that you come along to clean, the sweat's already started to break down those glues, and you the final step, and it goes boom, and it falls to pieces. Then you get this rather tacky looking lounge suite, which technically is kind of the operator's fault, but then again, it was going to happen. It was failing anyway.
It was failing anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that's because it hadn't been maintained adequately in the past.
When you were talking about leathers a moment ago, and you're saying the colour comes off, is it difficult to recolour the leather?
You have to have someone who knows what they're doing, because they literally got to repaint it. Yeah, so
right.
it's not just a case of getting a bit of colour and let's wipe that on there.
So you don't get it in a little tin and just rub it in and go,
No. Look, you can get some that are, if your leather's not too far gone, you want just a bit of a touch up to make it look a little bit better. But if you got to the point where you've actually lost that pigment altogether, it's actually spray painted on.
Spray painted on?
Yeah. It's a bit like a panel beater. You've got cracks and everything. They use a putty to fill it up with. They smooth it all off, and then they'll repaint.
And have you had experience doing that, Franco? Or did you send it to somebody else?
No, I actually have an expert that I refer my work to.
Yeah.
Like there was one, I had a hotel in Perth that young kiddie had decided to get the old biro out and have a bit of a scribble over this nice yellow lounge suite. Nice leather, and then the dad had a panic, and he got out the Jif and the old the Brillo pad type of thing, and had a hack at it, and basically to remove all the paint, all the pigment that was there, and we had to take that away and actually recoat the whole lot with a new colour, and then a protector over the top of it again.
So you don't take it to a panel beating shop, you take it to a leather beating shop.
Pretty much, that's right. Leather beaters,
It's in your lounge for new spray paint.
Yeah.
Oh, so someone with a lounge now, what would be your top 3 tips for keeping it maintained, keeping it pristine, because they do cost a lot of money?
They do cost a lot of money, that's right. It's not cheap to buy it in the first place, at least not if you're going to get a quality suite. When it comes to maintenance, once again, it really depends on what type of fabric you do have. With those macro suede, which are really popular these days, just a damp cloth a lot of times, a regular going over it, and I'm not talking about leaving it 2 years and expecting it to come off, it just won't happen. Okay, but if you do a regular maintenance just with a little bit of moisture on a microfiber cloth, you'll be able to get most of it up quite happily. Okay. There's not too many products out in the marketplace that I would actually recommend, because they just create another set of issues because of the residues they leave.
And how often should you get your, I suppose it's a $1 million question, but how often do you recommend you should get your lounge suites cleaned?
Look, it really depends on how much they get used. If it's in a formal area and they don't get used a lot, then once every few years is fine. But if you've got something that's a daily use, I mean, you're sweating on it, your kids are running all over it, the dogs are on it, whatever you have, really should be getting done every 12 to 18 months as a minimum.
To keep them in that pristine condition.
In that pristine condition, to make sure they're not going to fail prematurely, or they just get to that point where they just, people look at it. Now, the amount of times that I've seen them that we have, the junk pickups, and we've got these lounge suites sitting out there, absolutely nothing wrong with them, they're just filthy.
Yeah.
And I could actually take them away, clean them up and sell it if I wanted to. Not that I do, but I know people that actually do that, and they make a living out of it.
Really?
Yeah, because all that's happened is it looks terrible.
Yeah.
They haven't thought to maintain it, so they just get rid of it and buy another one and then repeat the process.
Wow. So someone with a lounge suite today, either leather or one of the other fabrics and materials that they wear, and they've gone, haven't had it cleaned. What's the best way of contact you? And what's that process when they contact you? What happens from there? Do you actually have to go and inspect it first, or what do you do, Franco?
Generally speaking, unless there's an actual issue with it, if you can just tell us, give us a brief description of the type of lounge suite it has, how many people it seats, are the cushions removable? If you happen to know what fabric it is as well, that would be really handy. In worst case scenarios, if you're not really sure, photos. Give us photos. We've got technology, let's use it. Just give us a call.
Straight on your phone?
Yep, straight off the phone. We can send it through to us so we can have a look at it and be able to quote that up for you online. So you can do it by email. So the email is info@facc.com.au. You can do it through Facebook as well. We've got our Facebook page on there, so we can actually do that through that messenger service associated with that as well. And once again, you can send pictures through on that as well. But yeah, the more information we have, the better equipped we are to give you an accurate quote.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Franco, cleaning your upholstery, cleaning your actual furniture you use daily, don't you?
Yeah, the stuff that you're sitting on every day. You clean your sheets how many times a year? And you know what? You're spending just as much time, well, maybe some people do, spend as much time on their upholstery as they do there. So yeah, they need to clean.
Absolutely fantastic. What's your phone number once again?
0418 914 097. Landline as well, if you'd rather have that one, is 9493 3880.